Well, here we are once again looking at the stats, and the key thing is, has September changed at all from the rest of the year in terms of, is it still a seller's market? Has it moved to a buyer's? What's going on with the prices and everything else? So that is what we are going to get into you right now. So you're here because you are looking into the stats and either thinking of moving to Halifax, you're already in Halifax and you're either a buyer or a seller, maybe you're just curious, but you want to know what the average selling price is here in Halifax. Well, this month for September, we came in at $642,000. And that's a pretty solid average. Yes, last month was at 656, so we are down 2% on last month. Compared to last year, we are up 4%. So it kind of shows that our market is very steady. It's very stable. The good thing is we're not like still on the increase, because even at 642, and there's a few reasons why we're at that kind of a high number this particular month, but even at 642, that's still a pretty average and solid number. Like, 642 for an average home in the whole of HRM, and there are a few caveats to this that we'll get into later on, but that's a solid number. And when you also start looking at the days on market, the days on market this month actually increased to 41 days on market, 35 days on market last month. So we're rapidly approaching that like month and 10 days roughly to sell your house. So it does show that our market is going through a little bit of a change right now. Prices are still saying high, yes, but the days on market are increasing. The number of listings is going up. The number of active homes for sale is going up. The months of inventory are going up. So when we look at all of those other, like, let's say non-price related factors, that's what tells you it is moving towards that kind of balanced market. We're not there yet, because a balanced market strictly goes by months of inventory being between 5 and 7. Now this month we're at 2.9 months, and it was 2.5 last month, 2.5 last year. So we're not like rapidly increasing the amount of inventory, but we also have just over 1,000 homes for sale. At just over like 1,051 homes for sale. That was 995 last month, so it's up a little bit on last month, and it was only 904 last year, so substantially up over last year. Now, the one other thing, of course, is that months of inventory. We know that if we're kind of like creeping up and the number of listings are creeping up, and then we can also see that the number of houses that we actually listed in the month, because that increased this month as well to 573 new listings were put on. That was only 500 last month. And this is where I want to spend a little bit of time, because looking at this particular chart, you can see it's the first time when the number of listings and the number of sales have not kind of followed that same trend. This month, the number of sales went down, but the number of listings to the market actually came up. So you can see that divergence and that split. And that's one of the key indicators that we're actually moving more into that kind of balanced market. And certainly when you're on the ground, like, how does it feel? Feels like a more balanced market. Now, I'm not saying that we're not doing multiple offers, because we were just in one of those at the weekend, but it took a few days before people decided to actually write an offer. There was no restrictions from the agent on that house in terms of wait 48 or 24 hours for your offer to be in, wait until a certain day, certain time. That wasn't there at all. It's just that there was a particular factors where the house was really nice. He'd priced it really well. So there was no issue with how we'd priced the house. It's just that there was quite a few factors that meant that people weren't like offering on the first day, which, looking at the house, was kind of one of those houses that you'd be like, yeah, somebody should have offered on that within the first couple of days. It is now conditional, of course, but one of those things that you're looking at is there were some other factors, and then all of a sudden everybody went, okay, but now I actually want to write an offer on this house. So they just went ahead and did it, and then it was 2 offers, and obviously it went conditional with one of those offers as well. So it's still showing like pockets maybe of being the seller fairly strong market, but it does come down to the 3 things: the price, the condition, the location. And getting those 3 things right, that's what makes the houses sell in the first kind of 10 to 14 days. So it is a very changing market. And that's what that's like the advice for everybody right now is be very cautious if you're a seller in terms of what number are you going to put on the house, with the agent's consideration as well, about how you're going to actually put the number on the house, because that does make a huge difference. When you're looking at like just over 1,000 houses for sale, buyers do have quite a lot of choice. And given that we're at 41 days on market, they're taking their time to actually decide what they want as well. One of the other factors this month, of course, is that sales to list price, and we're sitting at 98.2%. So it's been a bit of a shift, because we've always been like 99.9, 100%, 100.1, 99.7. This month is the first time we actually dipped nearly 2% under asking price. So we were average listing at 654, selling at 642. That gives you the 98.2%. Last month it was 99. Last year was 99.6. So that's also another factor that we're starting to see people kind of offer under asking price, which again is another factor that shows you're going a little bit more towards the balanced market, even though that months of inventory is not showing it by a strict mathematical number, 5 to 7 months. So buyers don't think that you're going to go out there and it's like, it's a buyer's market. Richard said so. No, he's not saying Richard is saying that there's a buyer's market. It's just we're moving towards the balanced market. Buyers have more choice. They're taking longer to actually buy the houses. Houses are staying on the market longer. We're at 98.2% sale to list price. So that's the information. So sellers, you got to be cautious with the price. Buyers, definitely don't just go, oh, well, I saw this house and you know what, I'm thinking about it for a week and maybe I'll come back and offer on it. It's like, if it's the right house for you, if it fits all of the criteria that you're looking for, if it's within the budget, if it's within the area that you're looking in, you should be writing an offer on that house. Because like with the one we just exampled, I know that if there was like an offer on day 2 or day 3, they probably could have got it for underneath asking price, no competition. And it would have been like a really, really good purchase in that area for the price that they could have got it for. But like, that's the problem is if you wait a little bit too long, then there's enough other people that are looking at the house and then you'll get that multiple offer situation. So that's the advice for the buyers and the sellers right now. So let's also talk about price drops. We've been going on about this now for a good like 4 or 5 months. Average price drops from when did you first list to when did you go to a listing price that got an offer sent in. Okay, so that's the difference that we're talking about here. Is I might list at $699, but I had to do a price drop to $669, and then an offer comes in that came in at, I don't know, $669 maybe, or maybe it comes in at like $660, something like that. Well, that average price drop was $46,000 in all of HRM, and we'll go into the specific markets and what that means for each market's price drop. But 46,000, and yes, the biggest price drops came from the biggest price tags because they can afford to do pretty large price drops of 100, 150,000. But it's still, when you look at it, we're talking about all of the houses, what were the price drops that had to happen. Now, this isn't every house. Not every house did a price drop. But for those that did, the average was $46,000, which is pretty telling in terms of get your pricing accurate, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, about where you need to be when you're first in the market. Otherwise, you do this thing called chasing the market. You're doing price drops and you're just basically chasing the market down before you find somebody that's willing to send you an offer. And that offer, 98.2%, is currently coming in under your asking price as well. Okay, so one of the reasons our average price is staying high is certainly when we look at Southend. Southend hit a record this month. They had 6 sales, but the average price there was just over $2 million. So there is some serious money being spent. And even when we look at the different price brackets shortly, you'll see that there's some pretty large number of sales selling for or buying things that are over $1 million. And certainly that $2 million number there, that definitely kept our average price like up into those mid 6s, which is where we are right now. If I take out some of those over $2.5 million properties, of which not just Southend, there was some in Indigo Shores that sold as well. And I think there was one down in St. Margaret's Bay and one also in Sambro area. If we take out those $2.5 million houses, the effect that they had on the price means that our average would have dropped to $603,000. So you can see that, yes, there's only been 6, but with them being at $2.5 million and higher, I think the highest one was closer to $4 million. you can see that it pulls that overall average up. So stripping those out, we go to only a $603,000 average price point in Halifax. And like I said, they were in Southend, they were in Indigo Shores, there was one down in St. Margaret's Bay and one in Sambro. One thing I wanted to touch on as well is how are the sales, because we're like 9 months into the year now, we're into the last quarter. I wanted to touch on how the volume of sales and the volume of listings has actually changed from the previous years. And at the moment, if you kind of take all of the sales that have happened, call that the volume, and we divide it by 9 and times it by 12 to get a year, we're actually running at the moment 11% down in terms of the sales volume from last year. But the number of listings is actually trending up. So that again is showing another factor that we're getting into that changing market. So it's even more crucial now that sellers are actually looking at that and making sure that you're ahead of where you need to be from a pricing point of view, so that you're not one of those people that's going to be sitting on the market for 6, 7, 8 months trying to find the buyer that's looking at your property and not wondering why have you been on the market for so long. Maybe you're being unrealistic in price. And that's one of the things that we're always looking at, is the trend to see where it's going. And at the moment, the volume is actually down, but the number of listings is up. And that leads us nicely into that listing to sales ratio, because this is the first time, and again, we've been monitoring this at around about that 90, 80% sales to new listings, which is showing that obviously the inventory is creeping up a little bit. But when we looked at this month, this is the first time we had 573 new listings put on the market, which we already said was up from last month's only 500. And certainly last year it was only 525. So we listed a lot more properties in September. But we only sold 363 in terms of the number of sales that we did. So that puts us at a 63% new listings to sales ratio, which is actually going to build the inventory. Last month that was at 80%. Last year it was 68%. So compared to last year, it's not too dissimilar, but certainly compared to the last 3 or 4 months where it's been in the 80s and 90s%, that's definitely going to show that we're leading to inventory. And yes, let's look at number of sales in total, because we haven't done that actually. 363 sales, 399 last month, and 358 last year. So fairly similar to last year, but definitely down on last month. Right, moving on to some of those sales price brackets. There's not really been a huge change in terms of like how many sales we're doing in each of the price brackets, but let's go through them now. So 0 to 400, 41 sales in that area. 4 to 500, we're talking 77 sales. 5 to 600, 91 sales. 6 to 762 sales. So you can see that chunky middle, basically the 4 to 700 is where almost all of our volume is taking place. You're looking at roughly 70% of the volume taking place in that price range, which, okay, that finally stacks up a little bit with our average price number as well. But that's where the majority of the sales transactions are happening. So if you're in that price bracket, either from a selling or from a buying point of view, that's where most of the competition is going to be, because that's where most of the people are actually buying. But if we move on and go to the 7 to 800, we're looking at 40 sales in that area. 8 to 900, we're hitting 22, tails off now. 9 to 1 million, only 9 sales. But this is the interesting bracket. $1 million to $2 million, 15 sales took place in that area. And then 2 million plus, we're talking 6 sales. So some pretty chunky numbers when you get to the top, but that just gives you where the majority of the transactions are happening, between $400,000 and $700,000. Right, the fun stuff. Let's talk top markets here. Number one, and we'll spoil it. We had a tie for number one here. There was 2 markets that actually tied for number one. First one, of course, is Timberley, St. Margaret's Bay, Prospect area there. Average sale price of $762,000, list price of $786,500. So we're actually 3.2% underneath the asking price there. They had 45 days on market, 32 sales in the month, 132 active, which gives them 4.1 months of inventory. So definitely some more inventory in that area. The second one, of course, that was tied was Beaver Bank Upper Sackville. We'll just call it Indigo Shores, because that's the majority of the sales that happened in that particular area when you delve into it. Their average sale price was $791, a list price of roughly $800. So again, 1.1% underneath the asking price there. 62 days on market, so 2 months to basically sell your house in that particular area. 32 sales in the month, which ties obviously with the number of sales that was in Timberlake, Prospects and Marks Bay area. 79 homes available for sale, which gives them 2.5 months of inventory. And then coming in at number 3 is East Hants, Colchester West. So basically Elmsdale, Enfield, Lance area. They had a $488,000 sale price with a 503 list, giving them just about 3% underneath the asking price there. 56 days on market, 29 sales in the month. 111 for sale puts them at 3.8 months of inventory. So keeping up there, but again, that's down to the price point. You look at that $488,000 price point, and with that being kind of underneath the 500, that's a pretty attractive market for the first-time home buyers. And then coming in number 4, Lower Sackville, also called just Sackville, $493,000 average sale price there with a list of 500, so only 1.5% under asking price. But it's very interesting to see how the average sale price in Lower Sackville has actually come down quite a bit, because that easily used to be kind of getting into the 550 range. Now we're down at the 493. So again, it's becoming a little bit more back into that easily attainable first-time home buyers market, but with all of the facilities that you would ever need in terms of transportation, schooling, rec centres, shopping, groceries, everything you'd need in Lower Sackville. 26 days on market with 28 homes sold, only 21 for sale, so that's only 0.8 months of inventory, so still a pretty tight market there if you're actually looking to get into it. But still plenty of volume of sales going on there, so people are definitely buying them. It's just houses are not really sticking around too long at 26 days on market. And that wraps up the month of September. If you have any questions, anything at all, our contact details are down below. Definitely drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about the actual stats and see if there's anything extra that you would want adding in, because we definitely want to focus a lot more on giving you the real information behind the stats and not just the numbers, letting you interpret, like, how is this? Is it a buyer's? Is it a seller's? But either way, if you have any questions, like I said, click on the buttons, drop us a comment, let us know what you think. And then if you have any questions about real estate here in Halifax, I'm your man.